Hello and welcome back to video number 4 in the Nostalgic Summer Memories video series. So today we're talking about smell, and I kind of had some not issues with this one, but I wasn't really sure how to document smell. I thought about, okay, my birthday is coming up in June, and the cake smell, I do remember the cake smell because I still make it today. But I was just really trying to think about smells, and then I'll show you what pictures that prompted me to come up with the documentation that I'm doing. Was we would go on trips all the time, and most of the time we went west. So we, I'm going to move this out of here so we can talk about this. When I say west, I live in Texas. We pretty much live in central Texas, so we would always go through West Texas. We went through, we would go to Arizona, we would go to New Mexico, we went to Big Bend National Park, which is in West Texas. So that was pretty much all of our trips that we would go on. We headed west. And then I started thinking about, because I had all these pictures that, we have actually several pictures, but these were the 3 that I selected for this particular project. And so I just started kind of thinking about the different trips that we went on, and the smell came to me. Cantaloupes. My mom loves cantaloupe, and my dad does too. And I don't know if you guys put salt on your cantaloupe, but that's how they've always eaten it. Salt on your watermelon, salt on your cantaloupes. Now you don't have to, but that was something that we did grow up having. Now, I personally did not like cantaloupes when I was younger. I was a very, very, very picky eater. Drove my dad crazy, but my mom was always compassionate about it. But unfortunately, I can't tell you I've had a Pecos cantaloupe unless I bought it in a store, because now I love cantaloupe as I got older. So we would stop in Pecos, which is, if you're not familiar with Texas, it's part of the West. And literally to get through where we're at, pretty much to get through anywhere in Texas, it's going to take you 8 hours or so. I mean, it was always such a long drive. It's flat, it's desert, it's not much going on until you get to like Big Bend. Of course, it's beautiful, but West Texas, and I know now, I haven't been in years, and I would love to go that direction actually, just to kind of check it out, but I know that it's changed a lot. We've got a lot of more oil fields, but anyway, that's not going into it. Let's get back to Pecos. Well, Pecos has cantaloupes, and I remember my mom, I don't know if we stopped at a side fruit stand or something like that, and we would buy, we'd get them in a brown paper bag, I remember that, and we would get several cantaloupes. Well, they're real great, but after a few days, which is what I wrote on here, Pecos, Texas has some of the best cantaloupes. My mom would always stop to buy some. Unfortunately, after a couple of days of ripening, the smell was not always the best. I remember one of our trips, we had a camper in the back of the truck, and it was one of those little, like, you could sleep in it, but it fit into the bed of the truck. And yeah, after a couple of days, woo-wee, that cantaloupe smell. It's very, very ripening. So anyway, that's what I've come up with on documenting the smell. So we went on road trips, and that's kind of, and I was able to use these photos to talk about going out west. So what's really fun about this project is I'm using up a lot of my stash, and so I've had these forever. I don't even know what company they were, but I've had them probably for like 3 or 4 years, and so I'm now finally using it up. But I basically just talk about us traveling. As you can see, we had this Suburban growing up, and what's so interesting, I think, is that we didn't have air conditioning. So, I mean, it's hot. You know, I can't imagine not driving and not having air conditioning. Spoiled rotten, yes, I know. But anyway, I love that my dad took this picture because it has that, I remember that old leather suitcase. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's like him. And then, you know, we didn't have necessarily bottled water, so we always had the big igloo full of water to drink. And the fact that we went, this is Big Bend, and the fact that we went and camped out there, just that with a bunch of little kids, it just kind of blows my mind for my parents. But we had, I kind of remember this trip, and that's what I put on here too. I was really younger, but what I remember them saying is don't wander off because of the mountain lions. And I remember looking, and so that was one of the things. And I also remember we went down to the Rio Grande, and so there was lots of, we really did like outdoorsy trips growing up. So anyway, I just kind of talk about the Suburban in this little picture because, in this little documentation because we had assigned seating in the back, which with 4 kids, I can see why my parents did that because we would constantly be fighting. But I do not know why I got blessed to have, lucky to have the window seat. My sister sat in the middle, and then me and my brother had the window seat, even though he was a lot older. He's about 5 years older than I am, so which I'll put that in there, but he didn't, he was driving to, not too much into my childhood, but when we were younger, that's how we had the assigned seatings. And so, and then this side of the documentation is I had an old map. Well, it was not that old, but I cut out Pecos and just part of West Texas, as a background, because if you ever do this, I'm sure if you've been documenting for a while, this is such a cool idea. I always try to like pick up maps and stuff whenever I travel, and then use them in my journal keeping, because it's just cool to kind of have it as a background and you can kind of see. And then I just wash these in as a tip-in, and basically documented on the back side of them. I just glued a piece of white cardstock, and then I talked about the pictures. So I wasn't real sure of the dates of these. This was White Sands, New Mexico, which I've heard it's really become quite the touristy place. When we went, there wasn't a whole lot of people out there. And then this one talks about off the beaten path, because my parents and my dad especially is so adventurous. He doesn't like just to go the highway. He is more into, let's take this side road, and he'll take a bunch of side roads and scenic routes, and I love that. I love that about him. In fact, I kind of have been like, let's take a scenic route to go here. So I love that I have that desire to do that as well. And then the other thing that made me laugh was whenever we had 4-wheel drive in the Suburban, we would have to get out and lock the hubs, which that you turn these little things. I never did it. I was a kid, but I see my brother is driving, and we would go out and lock these hubs up so we could use our 4-wheel drive. And obviously my dad is outside of the vehicle taking photos, because this is just so our family, But anyway, so even though you're in this particular documentation, it's not really about smell, but you can take one component out of the whole trip, like buying those cantaloupes and Pecos, and making it into a using that as your smell. So that was just, I was really glad I remembered the cantaloupe. So anyway, if y'all get to Pecos, get you some cantaloupes. Alright, you guys, thanks again for continuing on this journey, and I hope you guys are inspired. Oh, and just kind of a little thought process. I know on the last day I talked about going live, and I know some people don't have Facebook, some people don't have Instagram. So what I might do instead is just kind of do it may be a long video, but just kind of do a video of finishing up my album, or maybe adding a page in there, or something that really shows you my hands-on, like starting from the beginning to the end. So I think that may be what I end up doing for this project, just because I know it's difficult. I know you can do both Instagram and Facebook, but I just don't know if I can really interact, and that's really what I wanted to do, was really get some time on with you guys. But anyways, but I think that might be the route I'll go, is just kind of I want to kind of start adding some little elements of just kind of junking it up, adding some ribbons and some, playing around with all the fun things that we have in our stash. So alright, you guys, well, have a good day, and keep documenting.